Thank you. First of all, I just want to thank you, Golan, for having me, and Tom for the time you put in. I've known about the studio here I've come to various events here, so it's really an honor to be here. And my intent here really is to take my wearables and this process of making things specifically for dance, making video for dance to the next level. So just to kind of give a sense of what I do in terms of movement, I mean, what took me around the world, what kind of put me on the map as far as an artist, was this form of dance. This is a music video for RJD2 called Work It Out. Yeah, so that's what as far as my performance, as far as my dancing and my work, you saw two different things there. You saw weightless rhythmic skateboarding, and you saw the Shannon technique for dance on crutches. Now, a lot of you were saying, hey, I noticed you use your legs in that piece. I'm sure some of you may have thought that, right? Like, if you're using crutches, why are you using your legs? And so part of what I just wanted to talk about a little bit is about the nature of my disability and how the form came about. So basically, I started walking on crutches when I was 5 years old. And so this is me at 5, and I had this braces down my legs and stuff. But basically what the disease I had, called Perthes disease, basically prevented me from putting weight in my hips. So what I ended up doing was creating this weightless style. Now, what happens when you start skateboarding on crutches in public is you have interactions with security and with police and with various people who are like, why are you skateboarding on crutches? So I developed sort of different tools to kind of handle going through airports and stuff. And what that basically led into was a whole series of work around basically the sociology of how to deal with people's ideas about what I was doing. So out of that came a whole development of language, where because I was a spectacle wherever I was going, I would be stared at. So I started to do these performances that paralleled my real life, and then sort of naming the different interactions because they happen so much. So I set up a simple goal for myself, which was just pick up a bottle here. And then, so I'm trying to pick up the bottle. And if you notice the purse area here, you'll see like a psychosomatic reaction where she just kind of is like, get it. And then you see me lift the bottle. Now, the reason that's happening is because, as humans, we identify with the struggles of others. And this is in Russia in a marketplace. And I was invited to Russia to perform as part of a conference. And so I was performing material out on the street where I was performing simple utilitarian tasks. So I was what I call retaining neutral palate, which is one of the performance strategies that I do, where I don't like make a big deal out of it. Like I'm not picking up the bottle like there's some kind of problem picking up the bottle. I mean, this is just simply how I pick up a bottle. And it's important because, nowadays, I did a social experiment where I fell on my face on crutches and 2 people helped me up. Ha ha. Like a jackass mentality. And so because it was my real life, I wasn't trying to jackass. This is not jackass. This is about paralleling my real life so that in a performance, I can begin to interact with the psychosomatic impulses and the various kind of relationships that develop in public. And so my dancing, of course, evolved alongside of this to where my childhood play turned into a very refined form. And that play, eventually, what happened was I started to perform maneuvers such as like going no-footed down the stairs, like what you see here. Wait, where is it? There it is. Where, I just go down the stairs with no feet. And you saw a little spin down the stairs before, but it's sort of the kind of the thing as an adult. Like if you have adult onset where you hurt your leg as an adult, you really get crutches and you don't think like, I'm going to play on these and I'm going to create all these new movements and I'm going to start dancing because I just want to have fun. But when you have childhood onset of a disability, your relationship to the crutches becomes a bit more something playful. So here's another interesting interaction. In Russia, the babushkas are really the heart of Russia. And so you'll see here where I'm trying another no-footer up the stair, and this babushka comes in and takes me by the hip. Now I call this, takes me by the inner elbow here with her hand, and I call this gesture of help, which we all also do. It's where someone might really need help, but then there's also just, I want you to know that I want to help you, so I'm going to help you in a way that is very symbolic. And so in this particular situation, obviously, if I wasn't actually performing, I would be like, oh, no, thank you, that's okay, I appreciate it. But because I was in a moment of receiving where I was, again, retaining neutral palate, I wasn't looking like I was falling, I wasn't looking heroic, I was performing a simple task of a no-footer on the stairs, and her interpretation of it was tragic. Her interpretation of it was I was falling. And so she says, well, I'm going to express a gesture of help, because to really help me up the stairs, obviously you would like lift my body weight and kind of help me up the stairs. But she knows and I know that basically what we're doing is going up the stairs together at this point. So I'm helping her help me up the stairs in order to allow her to share her expression of our shared humanity in the way that she wants to help. Now, normally when I go upstairs, I go directly up the stairs, but she decides to go sideways. So she's taking me along on this journey, and now this is completely her path up the stairs at this point. So I'm taking on this journey with her that she volunteers to me. And that I'm accepting, of course, instead of normally denying like in my real life. So in this parallel performances of receiving and sort of expressions of a neutral palate, of being there to simply receive whatever the public gives, I'm able to establish a new relationship in which I'm host to gestures that intervene with my past as opposed to being subject to them. So that's a reversal of the power dynamic of a relationship to those who put upon you, no matter what your identity is. Obviously, if you invite it, you're switching the power dynamic from you being subject to other people's bullshit or their good intentions or whatever they may be thinking in their own head and their own stories and their own what I call projected narratives or stereotypes that they place on you. And they're saying, okay, I'm going to think this, and I can't do anything about that. I'm not going to be able to stop babushkas from grabbing me on the elbow, but I can, in my real life, say no thank you, or create these parallel performances where I accept the intervention and then engage it from a place where I am hosting it and therefore kind of riding it out, and it changed my entire relationship to how I interacted with help. So in these street performances that are ongoing, I have very different styles of performance. So I call this manifestation of the mind's eye imagine, where I'm manifesting how I imagine other people's mind's eye based on how they have interacted with me in the past. So the sort of gestures of help and sort of that kind of style of walking where it's, I'm using these various interactions with the crutch to change my form. And so that's the root of my work. I mean, I have a whole linguistic, phenomenological, and sociological underlying component to a whole series of street performances around, radical relationship to urban architecture, like out of skateboarding. Like if you see here, I try a spin down the stair, it doesn't work. So then I just allow myself to slide down the rail in a very Chaplin-esque way. And you'll see the moment here where first it's like, oh no, the guy on the crutch is going to die. And then he's like, wait, he's having too much fun. See you later. So there are people who aren't just necessarily, oh, you got jackass, because again, I'm going to stress, this is not a jackass, oh, my arms are in cast and my zipper's unzipped. Can you put your hands next to my penis? Ha ha ha, So, this is more about me reapproaching my life. And so from a skater ethos standpoint, as someone who uses crutches but still comes from a skater understanding of architecture, a radical relationship to urban architecture, a risk-taking relationship, at the same time representing a physical disability in which, in public rules around physical disability are that you do not take risk, not even for your own self, for other people's feelings. So if I take risk in public, and your feelings are triggered, that's my responsibility not to do that by looking safe and staying safe so that doesn't happen. So that's pretty much in a nutshell. I mean, there's a whole lot of other, there's condition arriving, for example, where I'd be walking towards like a restaurant, but there's a subway entrance next to the restaurant. So the restaurant has seating outdoors, right? So I'm walking towards, and then people start adjusting chairs for me to get into the restaurant to sit down. So my condition arrives at the restaurant where my person, me, is going down to the subway. And so when I observe my condition arriving ahead of me, it's like a vacuum. When I get on a plane, my condition arrives. If I go in a restaurant, the owner of the restaurant's doing their receipts on the front table, but they see me, and so they like clear all the receipts off and make a table for me. But I really want to sit in the back because when the door opens, there's a cold draft that comes in, and I'd rather not have that happen to me. So then you get this relationship with the public that is kind of contested, where it's weight of empathy, where people empathize for you, but then it becomes a weight that you have to carry because it's actually an obstacle to you that you're trying to work yourself around. So all of these street performance experiments around sort of these varied representations of disability and performing disability-based utilitarianism. Here, for example, where disability-based utilitarianism is the notion that, we all reach out a door, we grab the door handle, and we pull it. That's a utilitarian movement. So disability-based utilitarian movements are movements based on your disability that may not follow the same path of pulling on the handle of that door. So you may approach the door with your hip and slide your elbow into the handle because you're holding onto a crutch with your hand, and then pull the handle with your elbow and then use your back to hold the door up and go through. So that's a disability-based utilitarian way to open a door in a way that a regular utilitarian act would be to reach your hand out and grab the handle and pull. So disability-based utilitarianism wasn't just about dance, it was about life and movement and the function of that. So here you see a transfer to the knee, which, anyone who carries a bottle in their mouth because their hands are taken up. And that was something for me from very early childhood where I used to run around, always running around with something in my mouth, because that was just the easiest and quickest way for me to carry it. So I transfer to my knee, and then, it slides down to my feet, and I leave it there on the ground. And so that's how you set down a bottle when you don't want to bend over. And so that's just one example of disability-based utilitarianism. So, out of all of these movements and this creative different movements on crutches came a whole history of the design of crutches. In other words, my first crutches were, standard hospital laminate type crutches, and they kept breaking. And so the first crutch that I got that would actually survive some of the more, kinetic styles of movement. And when I say kinetic styles of movement, I mean, the type of movements that are very much breakdance oriented, like some of the things you saw in the very first video, where I was, spinning and stuff like that. Like here's a 540 sweeper that it would just have a very hard time with a regular crutch. But these are the type of movements that I had been exploring, and crutches don't survive them. So all of my body weight on that one crutch, and this is just a sweep, basically, aerial sweep, where I sweep into the crutch. So that movement right there on a regular crutch is not possible, because what happens with the crutch is it snaps, and it snaps right at this point right there. Okay, this is where the crutch breaks, because all of my body weight is spinning on the crutch at the same time that it's going sideways and pressuring into the crutch to hold me up. So all of that centrifugal force goes here, and then boom, into the crutch. Now you can imagine, what happens to crutches when you perform that way on them. So I started snapping crutches. Even in early childhood, I was already breaking crutches through my play. And so my earliest reference, I don't have any video. I grew up, I was born in 1970. I'm 47 years old. I started walking on crutches in 75. I walked on them till I was almost 12 years old. And through those years, 6, almost 7 years of walking on crutches, all of my play with my peers, keeping up with my peers, really, just to participate, was about survival. So it was a gut-based creativity. In other words, there's 2 types of creativity in the world. There's creativity based on the privilege of having the spare time and the energy to create, and there's the creativity out of necessity of survival. And the creativity out of necessity of survival as a child becomes gut instinct. And so from a gut level, I have been a creator from my gut, just creating movements with my body to solve problems. So my friends were running, jumping over bushes, and I was trying to keep up, and I was the only kid on crutches in the neighborhood, and I was the only kid on crutches in my school. It was before they did all the special programs and threaded people together, and I was literally the only kid in my whole school. I went to school here in Pittsburgh. I went to Fulton. I went to Peabody High School. I don't know who's from Pittsburgh. Who's from Pittsburgh? How many Yinzers in here? Okay. So, I went local to the local public schools, basically. But anyway, long story short, all of these plays was just to keep up, and it was a very intense, I have to do this now or it's not going to happen. There's nobody to look to. I didn't have adults telling me, this is how you run through your neighbor's bushes with crutches and a brace. So I had to create that, and so that creative necessity was fed into my art. So like I was saying before, I started breaking crutches, and so I found these antique crutches. Antique crutches are single grain. They're single grain of wood. And what that means is that they're very strong, whereas laminate ones that you get at the hospital have glued together layers. So when you put pressure on glued together layers, it just starts to come apart. But with a single, these old oak and hickory, sometimes the canes were hickory more, but the crutches would literally flex with the grain. And, so I was able to do some of those moves, and all of a sudden I realized my moves were getting more powerful because the crutches weren't breaking. And that's when the light bulb went off in my head that I just need to keep improving my crutches, and then my moves will keep improving. So, I hit a wall with, the acrobatic and the kinetic elements of my dancing. And then from that wall, I said, okay, I need new crutches. And so then the next thing that happened was I got some adjustable rocker bottom crutches. Now, I wasn't the person to invent the rocker bottom, but they were adjustable. And so what I started doing, because adjustable crutches basically have holes drilled through them and pegs, and so that makes the tube of the crutch weaker. So I got some adjustable ones, and I snapped them right away. And so I went and found some other ones, and then I welded them. So, I went in and welded the adjustable and filled it in and made it much stronger. But then those snapped. And then I realized aluminum is not even really going to work for me. So then I went to steel. So I made these steel crutches. And the steel ones were great, but they were super heavy. And there's some of my moves where I'll spin and go to the ground, and I'll open my hand up. So when I open my hand up in the crutch, I can throw the crutch. So basically, if I'm like this, I can reach through and the crutch will slide out. But sometimes when I want to throw the crutch, I'll stop it with my hand like that. But with the steel, I was literally bruising the hell out of the bones of my hand because the weight of a steel tube was so much heavier than aluminum that I was realizing I can really get hurt. I can break things with steel. So then I said, okay, well, let me go try titanium. So I did titanium here, and these are titanium shock-absorbing rocker bottom crutches. And the titanium shock-absorbing component basically was I was jumping off of things, right? And so I was getting all this pressure in my armpit. And the armpit pressure was very painful. So I started to hey, let's make an elastomer tube in the center of the chamber of the crutch so that when I land on it, it actually compresses a little bit. So it wasn't like boing, boing, boing type of compression. It was like only if you really hit it hard, it would compress for you. So it was the type of compression that was only for, I didn't want it to look like I was on like bouncy sticks. I just wanted it to compress minimally to allow for the type of pressure that I was putting on it. So then those crutches also really were not really working for me, because what was happening was the sideways pressure in the elastomer chamber was not consistently hitting the chambers at the same time. So if you can imagine two compression chambers parallel with each other, and then sideways pressure on them at different pressures at the same time. So what happened was they started to like not always align on certain movements. So I was stuck with this style on those crutches that was very like, keep them straight, don't put too much side pressure, and I just had to think too much. And so I ended up going back to, and what I found out was that there was an aircraft grade of aluminum that, there's all sorts of grades of aluminum, and I thought I had the best grade, but what I found out was that actually wasn't true. And so that's how I ended up with the aircraft grade aluminum crutches. So, as my style evolved, I started to travel around the world, and, was just, in the underground dance world. So, Japan, Germany, UK, all over the place. And so while this was happening, I was also an interdisciplinary artist. So I grew up in Pittsburgh, and one of the first masks I've ever made, I'm going to start moving into the more recent material, but I just wanted to give you a basic backdrop of the sort of relationship between making and dancing, like making crutches that then make the dance, that then make and demand another crutch that then, so that sort of fusion of making and dancing is also in my work around video. But it started around just the fabrication of the crutches of the dance. So I also was always making things by hand, and in Pittsburgh from the very beginning, from the mid and late 80s, where I was basically wandering around the abandoned steel mills, pulling things out of them. But this is me when I was, a young kid. I think I was maybe 17 here. I had made these out of a couple of cogs. I mean, the thing must have weighed like, 15 pounds, but I didn't care. I just wanted it to look like it looked, and so that's one of the first masks I made. And then another one I made, which, this was this rust one. It's kind of far away, so it's kind of hard to see here, but let me see if I can zoom in a little more. But, I was taking basically these objects and made out of metal and creating these wearable sculptures almost, and just creating these characters, and I would started performing in the street because, getting into hip hop and skateboarding, basically, I got off my crutches in 82, and 83, really hip hop was really like, okay, Double Dutch Bus, just the Sugar Hill Gang and Curtis Blow and the Fat Boys and Houdini and all of that came out, and it was a really big impact on me as far as a kid. And then on top of that, skateboarding at the same time. So I was a hip-hop skateboarder, which back in the day, everybody in Pittsburgh was a punk rock skateboarder. There was no hip-hop skateboarders. There was literally like me, and then I met a friend who lived in another area, and we got tight. Like, yeah, we're the only hip-hop skateboarders in Pittsburgh. And so it was before, Thrasher magazine never had hip-hop reviews. I wrote them letters. I was like, Dear Thrasher. It's even printed. There's a Thrasher with Metallica on the cover with a letter from me, and it's signed. I signed it. I can't remember. It was some corny b-boy. It was like I can't remember. I think it's Torquay B and the Agriculture. If you ever see the old 80s Thrasher magazine with Metallica on the cover, you can look in the letters and you'll see my letter from Torquay B saying y'all need to do hip hop reviews, because I was like, why is it all punk rock? Where's the other side of the spectrum here? Because they were both at that point. I actually got educated on punk rock. I went to a MDC show and it was just like, rah! I was like, this is amazing, So, but I'd always heard it on the radio and it sounded like shit. And so when I heard it live, I was like, oh, I get it now. But if you only heard punk rock on a radio from the 80s, it just sounds so horrible. You'd never want to hear it again. So back to the work. So I started, just with sculpture and wearable sculptures and that kind of thing. And the relationship to dance. So now I'm just going to jump forward a bunch of years where I was doing performances in the street and really start to look at where, Cirque Du Soleil gave me a call. And they were like, Bill, we want you to, teach someone else to do what you do. Well, actually, they said, Bill, we want you to star in our show. And then I said, well, no, I actually don't want to star in the show because, I have this solo career. I really enjoy what I do, and it's multidisciplinary. And to join their show would mean basically to go on tour and do this one act over and over, and I refuse to repeat anything. In the same way, this presentation. I've never given this order of video. I've never talked about this work this way particularly exactly. Some of the words are the same, but I basically don't really enjoy repeating exactly the work, and that's what they demanded. And I said, I really will hire somebody. You guys, I'll pick someone to do it. So they gave me 12 guys from Russia. Like, these are your guys. Pick somebody. And so this is who I found. This guy Vova, who this is him here. It's I went from not having names to anything to having a whole linguistic framing for the work. So part of the adventure of trying to document the performances of the material where, where's traffic? Oh, there it is. So one of the challenges was to document how people were interacting with me in public. And I was making videos of the interactions. Like, you saw the Russia video where the guy walks past me and, like, the babushka interaction and that kind of thing. But then it's like, there's the video there. I can control the edit. It's not like you can just be there to see it. So I said, you know what? We're going to put a DJ on the bus. We're going to put wireless video on a bus. You have to understand, the audience is laughing because they've watched me dance down this massive, like, fascist stairway, like 3/4 down this, like, giant fascist stairway, carrying my board. And then at the last 10 stairs, these guys come running up to save me. I did a whole conceptual framing before everybody got on the bus about how I accept help. I paint a neutral palette. All these different rules of so I have strategies and phenomena. So that's basically like some of the more lyrical components, which developed from running after people who were maybe hitting me in the playground. Hit the kid with the crutches, run away. I'll catch up with them. And the way I did that is through the left, right, learning that it wasn't two crutches to swing through, but it was like swing that first one forward and then swing all my body weight on one and then swing my body weight on the other. So the whole pattern of that. But the other really important part of this traffic piece, which is this trilogy of pieces really about how these interactions with the public happen, and that, different types of people go through different reasons. So there's this, it looks to me like a homeless vet, like he's talking to me while I was dancing. So eventually I turned around and acknowledged him. Okay. You all right?
Yeah. Good smell.
No, I'm okay. I appreciate your offer, though.
Oh, you're not doing too good. Let me help you.
This is something that happens to me on a regular basis, because when you have something like a physical disability, people often feel like they can communicate with you sometimes if they feel like you're approachable. So people are almost like a dumping ground for sage advice, or you're like a magnet for a sort of transcendent moment where people are trying to have a transcendent moment with you for whatever purposes they might be having it. So, I think that, there is this sort of role I take on where I end up in these in situations in the street from being a street performer and the type of movement that I'm doing. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and jump into like what's happening now, which is this wearable video stuff. So the wearable video came out of, I've been making masks my entire artistic career, early from the very earliest work. That cog that you saw there with the big, giant heavy piece on my face. From that piece, always making like things that just to kind of change. But I'm going to go through the video now, the wearable video mask, in terms of its different levels. So this is the latest version we're at now.
Do you belong here? I don't know who you are. Why are you here? Excuse me. Do you belong here?
So that was the most recent. That was like the fourth version. So this was the third one where it was a single. So the one that you saw, I shaped the form on my face. It was a little more dimensional and had, even though it was more abstract, it was kind of sharp, and it was more dimensional. And this one was just like one sheet bent over. And it's hard to actually shoot this from another camera because they're laser projectors, which means that it's not like frames in video. It's literally a tricolor laser that's, the beam is combining to make this single infinite focus projection. So the nice thing about infinite focus is that it can be a curved surface and it'll all stay in focus because it doesn't matter how far or close the video is to the screen, because it's never going to go blurry.
A little farther away? Is it better here? Is it better here? I don't know. It's hard to tell. Let's see. Hey. It's just a test. It's only a test.
So that's not me. That's me on the mask, but not me wearing it. So some other person is wearing my face, which is it's just a little bit, uncanny valley. So before that was this one, which was a much lighter weight but bulbous string, and this is just a test pattern. We're using these microvision POP projectors, and this was a 2-projector version. So the other ones, the last two that you saw, was 1 projector with a Pi 3 on it, feeding the video with a battery pack on there. And for the speaker, there's a speaker for the voice, so that the video voice comes from the mask, like it all is like self-contained. As a dancer, all these dance performances I'd been seeing, go see a dance performance. Oh, there's a video projector painting the whole stage, and then you dance around it, under it. But you're not actually the source of the video. And I wanted to switch the direction of video so that I am the source, and wherever I go, the video comes from me. And that was a goal for a long time, because I was so tired of dance performances with I'm going to dance, and then there's going to be like a shot of me bigger than me right behind me. So what's the point? like I literally, I was, as a video artist, I hated video and dance, you know, and as a dancer, like I really wanted video and dance, but it had to be the right way or I wasn't doing it. So that's what happened with this wearable. So this was the final one, and one of the, unfortunately, right here you'll see this. There was a little shift in the frame here, and so it's not covered right here, but we did have it mapped. And I'm working with projectile objects, by the way, on all of the video mapping and the video technology as well. So he's been indispensable as someone to kind of help solve problems. His name is Neil, and anyone who might be interested or know someone who might want to become a part of this, what we're trying to make happen here is for these wearables to talk to each other so that I can edit together multiple masks having conversations where the timing is locked in from a single source. And then the other thing is we're trying to move video feed to a Pi Zero, which is much lighter weight, so that we're not having the same amount of gear on our head in terms of battery, in terms of the actual unit. So we're trying to reduce the gear. And then the final thing we wanted to do too, and a goal of mine, is to take this Terry Gilliam version, which is like version 2, which isn't full face, by the way, which after doing the 2 full face ones, I really do kind of appreciate this still showing a little bit of the face while still showing the video. So I'm back and forth about it, but one of the things that I think could be really interesting is to have servos on the mask. Because the projector is infinite focus, the screens could actually move around, and so that would take some some skills around coding. It would take some knowledge about how to tell the servo what to do, and like how to get them to sync with the other ones. So literally I imagine a mask that you could like have a trigger, you yell something, hello, and then it like opens up, and then you go hello, and then it closes again, and it goes, wait a second, and you go, I don't really know. Could you imagine a mask of your own face over your face, and then all of the commentary around social media and how we're constantly posting up our own projections of ourselves in a curated version for the public to see versus our own self, and the conflict between a truth of who we are as how we live our life versus the projection of ourselves that we put in social media. And so I want those two things to come together in this theatrical piece, which is really what I'm going to move on to next. Oh, wait, did I have one more? No, this is the last version of it. So you can see, I think there's a shot here. Yeah. So, this is me before I really got into 3D printing. We have, 3D printed a chamber for the projector, but I literally was welding aluminum because, coming out of welding crutches, I was just like, okay, well, I'll just keep, aluminum. That's what I do. But the later versions, actually, we had printed 3D harnesses for the projector and whatnot. And so they're getting lighter and lighter, and they need to get even lighter. And again, that's the kind of skills that I hope to both learn here and work with people who are really good at it, because the way I learn the fastest is by other people who know what the hell they're doing. So so that's the basics of the wearable. And so bringing it into the sculptural component. So this was the mask actually was born out of a much larger version of these.
There you go. Just play around a little bit.
Where, I was trying to get a cubist effect for a live performance. So if you watch this video here, and there's some nudity, I mean, it's not, in any way lascivious or I don't even know how to pronounce that. I think it's lascivious, but I had been making these videos of my own dance, and my own dance was shot from like 8 different angles at the same time and edited together. So I just want to show this brief cut of my dancing as an abstracted video. is kind of important to share with you is I use the absolutely cheapest of everything. So, you know, I've got these $150 cameras that are like single chip, like dirt. And that's what I shot that white piece that you saw with. But I like to cluster cheap things to make them bigger than expensive things. So I clustered all of these to create this, you know, so you see how I shot it here. And that picture of the rig is really what I wanted to share with you here is that rig there. Because all I did the whole time was stand in front of the camera and figure out what the angles I needed to build the abstraction out of. So I took the projectors and I focused them on the wall and kept repositioning until I had a composition, and then angled the cameras to make sure my legs and my arms weren't like crossing over in the shots too much. And then I shot it all, and then I went and edited out the little parts that did have, like, let's say 3 legs, like two cameras caught 1 leg, and you know what I mean? So I cleaned it up a lot, but there was a lot of time just went into detailing these exact angles to get the shot to really work. So the video sculptures, you know, came out of these where I was like, well, if I'm doing these pieces where I'm doing it on a flat screen where you've got all the different, you know, cuts of me here, why can't I do that as in a 3-dimensional way live? So that's where this piece I'm working on now comes in. And this piece, Touch Update, you know, is about, like I was saying before, about how, you know, we have our wearable mask. We have our mask that we are not even necessarily a mask, but in social media, we have this other identity that we maintain. And that one of the things about that is the slow erosion of like physical contact in sort of meaningful ways. So we have this underbelly of like, let's just hook up. DTF? Yeah. You know, that's the internet physicality, you know? So the overarching physicality, like the meaningful touch, the touch that is the type of touch you might remember for the rest of your life, you know, is being shed. We're not experiencing it as much. We don't have that necessarily what we had in the 80s. Like, I'm one of those people who bridged it. I was young enough to still get it, but old enough to have been there before it, before the phone changed, before the whole way people, you know, run around the neighborhood looking for where the bikes were piled up. That's where everybody is. You know, you couldn't check a feed to see where the congregation of humanity was. You had to literally run around looking and maybe hopefully catch somebody on a phone. So, you know, I know there's a lot of talk about that, but so with this sculptural piece here of this dance, you know, I'm creating without the body. You know, this sculpture doesn't exist; it's invisible. So, you know, I need that body in the sculpture to bring it alive, and that's really what it's about. It's about the abstraction of the body in real time in live performance. And this was a rough cut. Like, this was the first time I was really using it while it was also on a massive servo. So, you know, it's 12 foot wide, 10 and a half feet tall, 9 feet deep, rotating around with all of these cameras. But the cameras were also live, but then there was also a pre-recorded feed before that. So, you know, the pre-recorded feed had other elements on it. So we went from the pre-recorded of these moments into the abstracted, and then there's the 3 masks so far of these people just on a boat. With the camera is super hard to see. But, you know, these people are on a lifeboat. It's darkened, so you don't see the lifeboat, which is a lighting issue. And this was a residency that I did at Mancy, which is at FSU. It's a dance residency place. And so we, you know, worked out a lot of the issues, but there's still a lot to go in terms of lighting. But this was a really important aspect of it, was getting them all on a boat. And this was before Irma. You know, these people on a boat crying. So without the human body in this sculpture, there is nothing to look at. And that to me is video and dance. If you are creating video and it's washing over the stage and this beautiful video, we could probably have a video show and have no dancing in it. So I'm kind of reversing the power dynamic with video there a little bit. So you see her, she's performing this piece. She's naked. And that is a reference back to the sort of classical cubist painters that were, playing with the human form from all angles simultaneously. And really, to get the body to like merge together into this amorphous shape, it was really important not to have any, clothing or attire that sort of decorates the body. I just wanted it to be so raw and plain, and so this was absolutely perfect. But you're still able to see the live performance and the abstraction at the same time, and then also the silhouette to kind of give these, 3 points of observation that you're choosing from. And it's the same problem with laser projection. Like, I don't think I fantasize about taking like After Effects and just putting the actual like clear video on each frame and pretending that it looks, because that's what it looks like live. It looks really nice live. So anyway, yeah, that's that piece. And then she exits. So yeah. So I think we've got some time for questions now. Yeah, I mean, we've been an hour maybe. Just let me see if there's anything else. Yeah. No, that's good. Yeah, let's leave it there. That's fine. And then I'll take questions because maybe there's some questions. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.